Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the next exciting edition of There's a Will. I'm Will, and she's not, but this is my guest, the esteemed Miriam Shaddad, political activist and the principal of the Esther, did I say that right? Estera Foundation.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
right?
you
Estera
did.
Foundation.
Hello, greetings.
Miriam, we're here. It's a nice winter day in Warsaw.
Yes, unfortunately, still cold.
It keeps going on, doesn't it?
It does.
But your activities continue all the time. I mean, I first became aware of you from a lot of publicity about you on a subject which is very much in the news all the time, which is the refugee influx into Europe and out of the Middle East, not only where you're from, which we're going to get to in a second, but right across Africa, Northern Africa anyway, for sure. You are from Syria, right?
Yes, my dad is from Syria, my mom is from Poland.
Mm-hmm. And how do you come to be here?
So I was born over here.
Let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning. Yeah.
So I was born in Warsaw. Mm-hmm. My dad flew to Poland for his studies, mm-hmm. and he fell in love with my mom, mm-hmm. and then he stayed over here and had 7 children, and I'm the 7th.
Yeah, and your father is a preacher, we can
yes.
say. How does he describe himself?
Well, he's a preacher, yes.
He is a preacher.
Pastor,
yeah.
pastor.
Pastor, yeah.
Yeah, pastor.
Which denomination is he?
Presbyterian pastor.
Right. So you have your father is a Presbyterian pastor, which is basically Church of Scotland, yeah. And you grew up here. Your mother is Catholic, but you have a particular take on the situation that's been going on with refugees, particularly as a woman. What is your take, and what inspired you?
Okay, so from the beginning. Priests from Syria asked my family to help. Mm-hmm. They wanted us to help them bring 300 persecuted Christian families from Syria to Poland. So I was a CEO on a couple of IT projects before, but then when this issue developed, there was war in Syria, still is, and I decided to open up a foundation and to help bring in the persecuted Christians to save them. Mm-hmm. So that's how it started. And I tried to convince the Polish society to bring in the persecuted Christians. And they got convinced. So my foundation brought in finally 52 families. With this whole immigration topic, there's a lot of issues. I think everything with the whole immigration crisis is...
It's one of the main issues everywhere.
Is the main issue. So the easiest way to deal with it is actually just to go to the embassies and not let anybody in who didn't go to an embassy and required a visa, some kind of visa, to get in. Because most of the refugees that come, they're not really refugees, they just claim themselves to be, and they can pose a threat to the society, and they're not the people who are the most in need. So to do it smartly will be the easiest way, just to let people get visas to come to Europe, the ones who are really in need, and we can verify them over there.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to get to talk more about what it's like being a woman with a sort of one foot in the West, one foot in the Middle East, and how that may have affected your vision. And just, I mean, I've heard you and in previous talks and read you talking about being very anti building of mosques and things like that in Poland, for example, but but not only. I mean, do you feel threatened as a woman? Is that the problem?
Yes.
Okay, because as a man, I don't
That's
feel obviously threatened in the same way. How does that affect you?
Well, the Islamic issue affects me the most. Of course, I feel threatened as a woman just because I'm a Christian, and because I'm a woman. So, as you study the situation in the Middle East and what's going on in the Muslim countries with women, I just cry for them. They are really enslaved over there, and they don't have enough rights. And the cases that I want to fight for their rights, and the other cases are like female genital mutilation, that family can actually do anything with them, and it's all based on religion. So women in the Middle East countries, they're not in a good environment, and if they are not strong believing Muslims, then they get a lot of times raped or persecuted in some kind of way.
Yeah, could you give some more specifics about what you see as a? I mean, you're not a Muslim, but you are from Syria, and this is a lot of something that people don't realize. I think there are actually a lot of Christians in this particular part of the world.
Yeah, there was 10% of Christians. Yeah. Now there's maybe 4 after a couple of years of war. And
where have those people gone?
Most of the people that actually died in Syria, they were Christians, and because the Islamic persecution goes directly to the minorities mostly, and the biggest minority and the first people that usually are being persecuted are them. So they're being crucified, and they try to convince them to follow Allah, and if they don't,
they want them to convert.
Convert, yeah, exactly.
You said that women are enslaved, and it's worth, because of your background and because you're a woman, it's worth getting specific about that. From your point of view, let's put it on the table, what are the ways that you believe that women are exploited in Muslim society?
In Muslim society,
there are obvious ways, and then there are less obvious ways.
The cases that they are exploited in their families from the beginning. So it starts when they're girls. They get female genital mutilated. Then when they are older, they have to dress in a Islamic way, so they have to cover all their bodies, hairs, sometimes faces. And if they won't get a permission from their father or brother to go, sometimes even to the doctor, then they get punished very seriously. So, like in Saudi Arabia, Princess Latifa, she was kept in the house for...
Who are we talking about?
Princess
Latifa in Saudi Arabia.
That's like a
this is a prime example. Let's talk about it.
Prime example. She was enslaved in the house for many years, and she was even tortured, beaten up a couple of times in a week, and her father didn't care.
What were her crimes? Supposed crimes, let's say.
She didn't follow the rules.
From
she tried
obviously
to
being
escape.
a woman.
She tried to escape to her older sister, who already was put in a different place and enslaved in a different city. So she tried to visit her when she was younger. She didn't understand that the consequences will be so serious if she won't follow the rules, or what her father was saying. And she tried to escape then, and after that, she became persecuted in her own house. And it happens to many women if they don't follow the rules of their father or if, their families or people around them.
We
they
have
get
honor killing is the
really
most
hurt.
extreme end of this behavior.
Yes,
yeah.
and it happens as well often. But that's being raised up in a family like this. You have to ask for permission to do anything. You have to wear the clothes that you don't want to wear. And if you don't follow, then of course there's consequences. A lot of women need to go and marry guys that they don't want to marry.
Arranged marriages.
Arranged marriages. With children, it starts as well. It can be with children, of course, because they follow Muhammad, who married Aisha when she was 6. So
you're saying that Muhammad had a very young, according to Islamic scripture, had a very young. I'm careful what I say. Don't want a fatwa on the program.
A very young wife. So they follow him. And
so marrying very young women is okay because Muhammad did it. That's what you're saying.
There's no there's no age of consent in 12.
There's no age of consent, so that's
12 Muslim countries.
Okay.
So it can be an infant even. When they marry, and so the persecution. I mean the oppression of Islam starts in a very young age. So this is for the Muslim woman.
Right.
For the Christian woman, it's if they don't wear or they don't behave like the Muslim woman, they a lot of times just get raped or enslaved. So that's the most for the.
That's the most extreme.
Well, not the most extreme. The most extreme is actually torture and killing, but they prefer to enslave Christian women just for the pleasure of raping them every day and selling them.
Because they don't meet the standards of Allah.
Yes.
Because they are not of the Islamic faith. So
yes.
This is the reason.
Yes, exactly. So, what else? What further?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of oppression going on with women because the next thing is that when they get older, they are forced into marriages. Then depends if they're. Yeah, it depends. It always happens in different age with different women. And they're not the first and only wife. That's a huge issue for a lot of women as well, because there's always 3 other positions for 3 other wives when they sign the agreement and the contract of getting married. So a lot of women nowadays, if they have the possibility, they don't even want to get married in Muslim countries. So so this is a huge oppression, and it's an oppression in the Muslim society, and unfortunately it comes from the Middle East and Islamic religion, but now it's as well in Europe, and Europe doesn't do anything about it.
When you say Europe doesn't do anything about it, what should Europe do? Because you've got strong views on that.
Yes, I think Islam should be outlawed.
I want to say this. As a woman who is half Syrian, who has a right to say this by origin and by blood, if people want to get that serious, I mean, to look for what justifies your speaking out, even though you're not Islamic, you are from the area. What should Europe be doing?
First of all, everybody should understand what Islam is and how it affects human rights, and it's not it contradicts it, and we should outlaw Islam. Mm-hmm. in Europe, we shouldn't think that it's okay to follow a guy who is a murderer, a raper, a pedophile. We're talking about Muhammad.
You're saying that about Muhammad.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when people think that this is a perfect example of how a society, men should behave towards women, it's not a good example,
well,
and it's actually a criminal example. Muslims think.
Muslims think it, but yeah. the problem is that Western Europe is not a Muslim society. In fact, there were wars fought over many centuries exactly to keep out this religion. One of the great battles was fought and led by Jan Sobieski in the Battle of Vienna in the 1600s, I believe.
Exactly,
yeah.
Yes.
So late 1600s. And so this is not a new problem in Europe, but it seems to me that what you're suggesting through your writing and through your activities, which, as I say again, in Poland, are extensive. I mean, you are a very well-known political activist in this country on this subject, and apart from that, obviously a woman.
Obviously.
Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah.
Our viewers will have no doubt about that. But so it's especially troubling to hear you feel that your point of view as a woman from this part of the world is not being listened to by mainstream politicians, perhaps.
I am being listened to in Poland, in this country.
But I think if we're talking about Europe as a whole.
Yeah, but
go ahead.
Europe has a huge problem because all the Muslim society and Islam in Europe has a huge immunity. Their beliefs contradict with our law, and
in the
law
treatment
enforcement,
of women, for example, or treatment of children, minors.
And law enforcement doesn't follow the rules and the law to the Muslim society. Doesn't apply the law that we have.
Okay, let's look at that point, because that might be could be a little confusing. You're saying the law in Europe does not always come to bear on the Muslim enclaves in Europe. Is that what you're saying? The Muslim
it's not enclaves. It's millions of people. It's millions. Each year there's 2 million Muslims coming into Europe. So and other countries. There's a lot of millions of Muslims already in Europe, and as well their children, and they already not only immigrants but already citizens of Europe.
But is the problem really?
It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem because now in Europe we have like over 1 million. Women who were female genital mutilated, so it's not an issue.
Female
mutilation.
Genital mutilation,
yeah,
which is horrible. It's hard to even say because it's a horrible thing. Is practiced widely. That's your point.
Yes, it is.
This is one of the most disgusting facts.
It is, but we accept it in Europe. It just.
Why do you think that is? Why is there this double standard, Miriam? Why do you think
because of political correctness, because the freedom of...
The death of us all, political correctness. Yeah.
And the freedom of religion. But the case is that there is no freedom of religion within Islam. Like, people cannot...
There are no denominations, or not to speak of. There are some more orthodox than others, but...
No, but with the scriptures, and as you study only the Quran and follow Muhammad, so it applies to every Muslim. All the apostates, people who convert,
apostates, the people who
convert or go away from Islam should be killed. So none of the children of Muslims have actually a choice if they can believe in Islam or not. Yeah, so that's and they don't have a choice. No women, even in their societies and with their families, they don't have a choice if they want to wear or do not want to wear clothes.
The Batman outfit.
Batman outfit, and that's for me. I think the easiest way is to outlaw. First of all, outlaw Islam. Second of all, do not let all women, with no exceptions, wear Islamic clothes.
So isn't that a law in France?
No, it's
What's the law in
only they cannot cover their faces.
They can't cover their faces, but they wear now, and this is my fault. I've forgotten the word for that. I ought to know better.
Abaya.
After my travels in the Middle East. What's it called?
Abaya.
Abaya. Yeah, thanks. That's me not knowing that. It's ignorant. So the problem is that European civilization. No, here's the problem. That's too big. The problem is not all Islamic people. There is a significant amount of Islamic people who do want to integrate, who've done it over a long period of time, and who are more secular, and are not radical in any way, and do adapt and move freely through society over hundreds of years.
Yes, they are. They call themselves Muslims, but the case is that we can divide actually Muslim society into 4 groups.
Yes.
One group is the victims. So the ones, most of them are women and people who don't want to be within this religion, and they don't follow Allah enough. Second group is ignorance. Those are the people who you're talking about, that they're integrated, because when they don't know actually what the scriptures are saying and what Allah is really wanting,
or maybe they don't care.
They don't care. They just were born within the religion, and they're secular. They don't really believe it or study the scriptures, so they don't follow it.
Your view on those people is okay, fine.
Yeah, okay.
What's the problem? They're not militant Islamic, and who cares? Yeah. They're not treating women badly.
Yeah, they
as a rule, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, but they should be educated. Everybody should be educated. What is Islam actually, and that it is not proper to try for other people to believe in it and teach children to believe.
Well, there are a lot of secular
Allah.
Christians. There are a lot of secular Jews too. But what you're saying is, if you're going to be brought up in this, you might as well figure out what it's all about. If you're going to be brought up in a religion, figure out what it is.
Exactly,
whether you're
and
Buddhist
this is our role to put it in the schools.
Yes, right, okay.
To teach children in the schools what exactly is Islam and what it says, and that it contradicts to our laws, and it's not good, and Muhammad hurt children, killed people, because Muslims don't know. They don't even actually realize what their whole faith is about, and they think that murdering people and for Allah it's actually it's not. It's only radicals. It's not only radicals. This is what the Quran is saying, that those people who murder for Allah, they will have a higher reward in heaven.
Have you studied the Quran intensely?
Yes.
Yeah, this is something you've done.
Yes.
I have not. I've read it, but I have not studied it intensely. So I won't claim to be any expert. History of it and things like this, reading about the Middle East. I've been to the Middle East many times, but I wouldn't claim to be an expert.
Yeah, so there's 164 verses calling for murder and killing the non-believers.
Yeah.
And
well, it's a pernicious religion.
It's a direct. It's an.
The fundamentalist aspects of it are pernicious, are extremely. The consequences of following it are extremely bad for a number of people,
yes,
including women. We've established that, and sometimes for children,
yes,
because they're not treated with respect. Yeah.
First of all, do we need to ask ourselves a question? Do we want to raise up little girls like thinking that they're only worth half a man? because that's what Quran says, that a woman is worth half a man? Do we want to raise up little girls who won't ever have benefits of sexual intercourse because their female genital mutilated? Do we want to? We need to
because their
protect.
genitals have been mutilated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we want to protect? Do we want to protect the girls? Do we want to? Boys to think that they should fight for Allah and kill other people? Do we want to educate the boys that they should treat women as their property, as their as a thing that they own, and the non-Christian women that they should punish with rape?
What you're saying is there's still
we're allowing it.
Yeah.
We're allowing it to happen every single day in Europe, for the children to be raised up in this kind of environment, and that's why I started this conversation.
Your point is, why is Islamic customs, which do not meet with our law, being allowed? Why does that supersede our law in the Muslim community? That's what you're saying.
Yes,
okay.
I'm asking that question, and it's not. I'm just I'm asking everybody. I want everybody to have the same rights, because for right now, Muslim societies have immunity at the moment, and nobody's doing anything about it. So that's what I'm fighting for, and I think we should outlaw Islam, and that will be the first step. Making people understand what Islam is, and that it is not lawful.
But if you outlaw, I mean, you might outlaw certain aspects. For example, we start with the horrid subject of genital mutilation. You start with that. So let's say that's outlawed because that contravenes European law, and everyone can agree with that. Let's say that's outlawed. But to outlaw the whole religion, what about the people who practice it faithfully and peacefully? This becomes a problem, doesn't it?
But to follow, practicing. So what they are saying, we are practicing a murder, pedophile. We're okay with it. We're okay with.
We're okay with what?
With practicing and following a pedophile and a murder.
Well,
so that's what.
But wait a second, that needs to be clear. Pedophilia and murder, in what sense?
Because Muhammad married a 6-year-old, and then
a 6-year-old.
A 6-year-old, and
he married a child. In effect.
Yes, had an proper intercourse when she was 9, but until that they had tightening sex. So, and Muhammad.
So you're saying this is abuse, and this is.
It is an abuse, and
What do Muslim people that you talk to say about those kind of things? How do Muslim women that you speak to justify living this way, or what do they say to you? Or maybe they don't justify it.
The case is that they're the victims. They're the victims. So when you're a child, you're being raised up in this kind of environment. You're brainwashed, and your whole society says that this is the way to live, and this is how you follow Allah, and this is God. Some of them go for it. They say this is how it has to be.
What do you think? How do you explain their attitude?
Well, to be happy for them, they have to follow the rules and what their environment is.
You mean to survive in the environment?
To survive.
To survive. Yeah.
It's a Stockholm.
What do you say to them?
Syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome, which is when you begin to love the person who's
oppressor. So Islam is an oppressor.
Yeah.
It's a system. It's a whole oppressive
battered
system.
wife syndrome, you're saying, or something. Like that.
Exactly. So Islam is a whole oppressing system to the woman, and they need serious counseling after this kind of oppression. But what we can do at the moment, first of all, saying what is wrong, and saying that this is wrong and this is evil. Because if you're not gonna say at the beginning that Islam is wrong, Muhammad is evil, and teach that children, they won't understand it, and they will try to protect it and follow with it. But there's a huge threat at the moment, because Europe is not doing anything about this issue.
Well, I just wanted to say here at this point that one of the main things would be certainly that contravenes our way of looking at things in Western Europe, the United States, other countries of that ilk, is that women don't have the freedom of association, which is a freedom to associate with who they want to associate.
Exactly.
Which is a linchpin, which is the foundation of our civil society in Western Europe. And you can't argue with that. I mean, it's number one thing, being able to associate with who you want to.
Exactly.
And determine your own future as much as possible within the law. Right?
Exactly. So imagine the situation: a Muslim woman is brought up in Europe, and she's still oppressed. She doesn't have the freedom because her whole environment makes her feel endangered, and may poses a threat to her, or she can get beat up or killed even. So when they're being raised up, they don't have the will, even if they go in the television and say that they want to dress like this. It's not either they have a Stockholm syndrome or they're not allowed actually to say anything else. So we need to provide freedom, even in dressing for them, by just saying that this is not allowed to dress in this kind of way, because it's a symbol of oppression of women. And it's a lot of Muslim men.
You're saying they're brainwashed in a sense that they have to behave in this way.
Yes,
because God wants them to.
Yeah, that's the other thing. But we need to, when they're smaller, we need to teach them. Yes, it's a very hard issue what to do with the people who are already raised up and they're much older.
Right, that's a good point, and that's a point that.
That's why we need to.
You don't want to cause more suffering to the person who. I mean, but how do you tell they're suffering? This is the problem, isn't it? Also part of the problem, because if people willingly accept a form of emotional or even physical slavery, then it's hard to convert them. And I know this personally because having studied the problem of sex slavery and investigated that, some women don't, they run right back to the person who's been oppressing them. Yeah. To the pimps, the warlords, whoever it is, because they're used to that kind of life.
Yeah.
It's the only life they know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
so you're saying the brainwashing has to stop at birth, or
as soon as possible. What is the response? Okay, I'm trying to see what is our responsibility as a government now. And law enforcement, what can we do to protect those to protect women, protect their lives, and not only European women, which are massively raped now in Europe because of the Muslim immigration.
Well, let's not say massively, but let's just say that we can look at. I don't have the statistics with me, but we can say that certainly anecdotally, and from news reports, that there is a massive amount of abuse, increase in abuse that has happened since the influx of so many migrants, we can call them. I don't know even what the words are. Migrants? Refugees? I don't know.
Migrants, yes.
Let's call them migrants.
Yeah, migrants.
That seems fair.
Muslim immigration, maybe, yeah, mostly. In Sweden, there's a rape when one of the policemen would show statistics that rape occurs every 3 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my Swedish friends are bringing this up.
And 90% of the rapes are from the Muslim society.
Yeah, and that's statistically.
So, that's statistically, yeah. But the cases.
There seems to be a divide in Sweden. It's worth bringing up that case. I may have another guest, another lady who wants to come on, who does a lot of NGO and work.
But the cases that we need to
she
start
wants to talk about
going back to boys, we need to teach them that they cannot rape a non-believer.
Well, respect.
Respect. It's like teaching respect. So with the Muslim society, once we understand that this is illegal, so like we should start closing firstly the most radical mechets, then decrease it and do it step by step.
But you would go so far as to say an all-out ban on Muslims.
Islam, not Muslims.
On Islam. The practice of it. I mean, how does that manifest itself? No mosques being built.
Yeah.
What else? How would you do that?
Close are the radical mosques. So we need to
close radical mosques. Okay.
First.
No fundamentalism.
No fundamentalism.
No preaching government overthrow and things like that, and hatred of Christians.
Yes.
And Jews or whoever, Buddhists, whatever they hate. Yeah.
Teaching actually children. All the children in education and school what Islam actually is, and calling things how they are.
So religious tolerance across the board. Religious tolerance should be taught. All religions should be
taught.
Should be. You said that before. Should be taught comparative religion, and then teaching religious tolerance within that. Peaceful practice,
but with.
But you want to go further than that.
Well, I want to ban Islam finally, but before that, I mean, children need to understand that Islam is evil.
So you would start with education. The ban is going to be very difficult, Miriam, obviously, because you've got so many people here, and as we were talking before, who've been living here for so long. There is
but let's start with
What about
education.
the secular Turks, for example? A lot of I've had many friends from Turkey who practice Islam at all.
Yeah, so let's start with education and comparing. Teachers should compare, but
so an intellectual approach would be a good start.
Yes, intellectual approach will be the best.
Education.
But calling that this is evil, yes, this kind of teaching, and it's against the law. It needs to be named that it is against the law to teach in this kind of way.
Evil is not a legal word, but against the law is a better way of looking at it.
And show examples. It's not moral, and show examples based on the Quran and teachings of Quran that this is against the law. It's not, and this is hurting, and teaching children how to be empaths, and teaching people how to be
empathetic.
Empathetic.
To put yourself in the other person's shoes.
Position, and this is one way. Other way with the immigration, of course, radicals. I think that we should deport all radicals, or send them to the states if there's terrorist threats from those people. I guess they will know how to deal with them. And the other cases is not to let, of course, in the immigrants that just think that they should be, and they try to enforce themselves to be in Europe.
How? We're coming up to the end of our time today. There's always next time, but this is such an important subject, and you're a person who's really involved in it. So I wanted to come back to your foundation, the Estera Foundation. How is it doing? How have the families? We said brought 50 families over. Have they adapted well in Poland? Are they in Poland?
Yes, the case for me was to let getting them out of Syria, out of the war zone. So to do that, we had to provide visas for them. So we got them visa Schengen. So there's once they were in Poland, they could travel wherever they want in Europe. So 30% of them stayed in Poland, and they're doing well. They, of course, the younger one, it's much easier for them to adopt. Some of them already speak Polish, and they go to college and do their studies and work. And other older ones would like open up the restaurants or just do hairdressing. It depends what
so they're assimilating
they are
into the society, and it's been successful in that sense.
Yes.
Yeah. So you must be very feel gratified that you had this idea and it has worked. At least you were able to. It's a different thing, but you were able to, from the Islamic problem. It's a result of the Islamic problem, the Christian oppression in Syria, and needing to bring them here. But it is a practical thing. So you're not just talking. That's the point I want to make.
Yeah.
You're somebody who has actually done something positive.
Yes, and the other case is that because we have different laws in the Muslim countries and European countries, a lot of times there's a lot of Polish women who get into relationship with the Muslims, with the Muslims, and so I as well try to help them like get their children back or deal with the situations with their partners.
Well, I think we're going to have to leave it there.
Okay.
It's been great having you. Miriam Shaddad. It's fascinating. It's excellent to get a woman's point of view, somebody who has deep roots in the Middle East and in particular in the country of Syria. It's only the start of, or let's just say a little addition to a much bigger conversation, which is the problem of getting along together with different customs, different points of view. First, we have to agree that we have that we do have different cultural backgrounds, different points of view, different religious teachings. We have to learn to respect that, but also where it contravenes the law, where you are, people need to adhere to local customs and standards, and I think that's fair. They would expect that in the Middle East, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all from There's a Will. I'm Will. This is Miriam Shaddad, my guest today. It's been great having her here, and we'll see you next time. If you enjoy the show, please hit that like button. We do this for you. If you have any comments to make, and you may well have comments on this particular show, pro or con, please put them in, and I'll get back to you. See you next time.